Welcome, people, to episode 6 of the Recreational Bodybuilding Podcast. It's just me and Jack this week. It's been, I think, 3 weeks since the last one. We were supposed to record last week. I, on the other hand, decided not to have internet, which was absolutely glorious to be isolated at home with zero internet connection. So, and working a full-time job at home as well, which relies on the internet. So yeah, all good. We're actually going to be calling this episode what was it, Jack? The half-bearded recreational
The
bodybuilding
half
podcast.
bearded.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
just got to let that. You got to let that shit go.
so for the two people watching on YouTube, you'll see that myself has decided to use quarantine as a good excuse to see what facial hair looks like on me. So far, I
You
look
probably got
like
more hair than most people on their head at the minute.
yeah. So I was actually really lucky. I got my hair cut the day before everything got shut down. Like I just
Yeah.
knew instinctively. So I was like, I'm all right for now, but I know my girlfriend's got some clippers. She's eager to start experimenting. So it's going good. How are things with you anyway on your side?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I think that the last podcast you had with Dan, right? So I
Mm,
wasn't there. But that week was basically my week of transitioning all of my clients from gym workouts to home workouts, which is obviously like I was kind of a little bit because I've got some clients in like Norway and I have a client in San Francisco, so they actually stopped their gyms kind of a week before us. So I
mm,
kind of had that like, oh, I should probably get stuff sorted out for everyone else kind of in this period. So I kind of, that kind of week and a half was just absolutely crazy. I don't think I've had a week like it with online coaching, especially doing that with the full-time job. That was fun. So yeah, but yeah, all good. Training's all good. Nutrition's heavenly because I'm out of the prep. So it's been nice. What about you? All good?
Yeah, not too bad. I I mean, my work right now is I'm no longer in the office, so it's all right in a sense, but it's still workload is still pretty harsh. Um, Training is okay, like it's as good as it can be. Like it's never going to be as good as in a gym, but I mean, we'll probably touch on that in a bit. But for now, it's like right now I'm sort of in a phase where I've got some structure to my routines, but I'm still, especially with leg training, I'm still trying to experiment on some things that feel good. Hamstrings are I'm just finding it really hard to really isolate them. Quads aren't too bad. Everything else is pretty good. Like arms, I seem to get really sore, and chest as well on like push-ups. It's just crazy. Nutrition, again, I sort of cut my diet 2 weeks back. Um,
Right.
so that phase is over. I've sort of semi-moved to, I want to say I've moved to maintenance, but I'm sort of the kind of person like as soon as a diet phase is over, my motivation to track sort of goes out the window. So I'm slowly I'm tracking here and there and keeping an eye out on things, but yeah, the weight will creep up just naturally, just with the Easter chocolate, the odd takeout here and there. It's just, but overall, yeah, it's pretty decent. Yeah, not too bad. Um, so yeah, what I wanted to talk about today, and I thought it might be interesting to some of the listeners who may or may not be going through a similar phase right now, is, of course, Jack, you were prepping up until I guess a few weeks back, mainly I guess the decision probably was impacted due to the coronavirus, obviously not to continue that prep. What I thought might be good is maybe taking a step back to the decision as to when you finally decided to embark in a bodybuilding competition, what that decision was, how you came to it, and then maybe just take us through that journey to what sort of how far you got to then to that decision to not do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've always been kind of inquisitive, I suppose. Yeah. But with the whole kind of not necessarily the bodybuilding show, more men's physique show, because obviously you've got different categories. But I've always been kind of intrigued by men's physique, by the men's physique category. So I guess I was it's always been, or always has been, a plan to do a prep. Whether I didn't know it was going to be this year. My kind of guess was it was probably around like 4 to 5 years from now. Um, I guess I've got stage lean kind of 2 or 3 times before that, so getting to that level wasn't actually that much of an issue for me. I actually arguably enjoy getting lean or getting stage lean more than the massing part of it, and maybe we can touch on why after. But mainly because I need such a high amount of food to gain weight. Like, for me to lose weight, I could probably lose. Well, I was losing weight on around 3,400 calories, and I was dropping. Like, I was sending you the weights that I was dropping, and I was dropping nearly like 2 to 3 pounds per week, and that was like aggressive. Um, so you can imagine the amount of calories in a mass, and that's not saying like, oh, look at me, look how much food I can kind of intake. It's just getting in food to gain weight is hard as hell. So I was kind of getting to that point in the massing phase where it was just way too much. And it got to like, I'd say Christmas, and I was like, on Christmas Day, I was probably in a deficit. It was getting that hard to have my calories that high. So my plan was to do a cut anyway. Um, and when I kind of looked at my physique shots, because I think that taking lots of progress shots throughout years is very, very important. And seeing the shots from 2 years ago, because I've taken 2 years out to do, or basically a 2 year off season, seeing the shots from back then to now was like, oh wow, like I've surely gained a little bit of muscle here. So, and I mean, the shots that I had when I kind of lost a lot of body fat, and was arguably stage lean, well, I could have gone on stage and done pretty well. And then after a 2 year off season, that's when I kind of looked at it and thought I could actually do okay in kind of men's physique. So I guess it's kind of a mix between being quite like inquisitive of it, and also getting to the stage in a mass where I just simply needed a fat loss phase, and kind of use that as an excuse to let's just do a prep. But yeah, I guess the next question is why it stopped.
Hmm. Well, tell us
Yeah.
how far you got, right? So how much weight did you lose? Sort of how long was the fat loss phase, and then yeah, and then why you made the decision to stop.
Yeah. So to put some sort of reference in, so I stage lean was around like the 60 kind of 5 kg mark, and if you're in America and using pounds, I'm not too sure that is, but just go to kg, just type it in. You've got Google. So yeah, I was around that. And then when I was at my peak of my mass, I went to around, okay, we can do that. I know this. It was around 230 pounds. Because I don't know why, but I switched to pounds like kind of like 6 months ago. But anyway, I was 230 pounds, which was quite heavy. So within that time period, I pulled out. So that was 10 weeks. Obviously, I pulled out because COVID played its part. But within that time frame, I dropped from 230 to around like 185, which is quite a lot. But again, this is a lot of it was kind of water at the start. And I was speaking to Steve Hall about this, like when I met up with him, and I've got this like I have these kind of 2 or 3 weeks where I look like terrible, and then all of a sudden, like the 2 to 3 weeks after, it kind of clicks, and then I kind of look a little bit lean. And so my plan was to cut for 20 weeks. I actually got 10 weeks in. Things were starting to look really interesting. Things were starting, like training was unreal. Training was probably the best it's ever been. Nutrition was just like clockwork. Like I had meals going in, like it was just every single day, pretty much exactly the same meal. I'm very boring, so I'd eat the same meals happily. Um, so yeah, and then as I say, that 2 to 3 weeks where I said, Steve, look, I reckon things are going to get very interesting, and that's when this crap decided to embark on us. So um, the decision was solely solely the situation. I actually didn't, even though I knew that gyms were pulling out or gyms were kind of going on its way out, I kind of kept going because a part of me is like, it hasn't been cancelled yet. So I'm just going to keep going. I mean, I think that's all you can do. Um, but yeah, I just kept going. And then obviously we got the email saying it's all cancelled. They are due to be, they're in September now, of which they're likely not going to be on. So yeah, so right now, maintenance. But it's kind of weird because I had that stage in the mass where it was real, like a real struggle to get in food, went into a deficit, kind of got the opposite where I was like, not food focused, but I'm getting on the cusp of being food focused, quite hungry. And then less than 3 weeks later, I'm in the same position as I was back in December where food's a struggle again. So the hot cross buns are out.
And why did you decide? I know the show was cancelled, but was there a part of you that wanted to just keep on dieting just to sort of see what it looked like anyway?
Yeah, there was. After having a lot of conversations with different people within the industry, I don't think I think it would have been fairly stupid for me to continue, due to the fact that if it's just more time in a deficit when I could actually be growing. Like it was an ideal kind of prolonged mini cut, as it were. I've reduced body fat. Like right now, like technically, if I could measure it, nutrient partitioning is probably in a favorable place. Um, so right now, it's actually quite a nice little like cut down, rebound back into a mass. Like if I actually was planning it, so I was prepping next year, it's probably something that I would have done anyway. So yeah, a part of me really wanted to do it, but and then speaking to other people and having that kind of look, you could look even better next year. Kind of get out of this deficit now. There's no point being in a deficit when all this crap's going on anyway. You can't get food because everybody's panic buying unless you want to eat toilet rolls because you got 25 in the house. Then, but yeah, again, I think I would have got, like me personally, I would have found it very easy to get stage lean as discussed. Um, so I would have just kept going and probably put my immune system in a very bad position.
and 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 so what's your plan now? You mentioned that you're in maintenance right now. Um, how long is that going to go on for? Are you going to continue massing? What's your plans for next year?
Yeah. So technically right now it's like a maintenance because as we know, like if you go straight into a maintenance phase, you're likely going to have like that little bit of water weight, kind of the glycogen replenishment and everything else like that. So technically right now I'm in like a maintenance phase. I mean, on average, I'm kind of gaining the kind of 0.25 of a kg per week, which is really like conservative. But yeah, and then plan is going to be have I like to do it kind of once a year. Is actually have like a mesocycle without tracking. It's kind of what I tell or have done with clients who are particularly experienced within kind of the tracking scenario. I think that having time away from tracking is incredibly important. I don't think people realize how much of a psychological thing it does, whether you're in a mass, whether you're in a kind of prep, fat loss phase, anything like it, having something to eat and then having to go into your app and then look it up and everything, it does take a toll. It's fatiguing. So I do like to have like a mesocycle or two mesocycles where we just don't track. And so that's what I'm actually going to do next mesocycle. I'm actually going to take time away. The only tracking device I'll have. So, I mean, if I'm eating too much, then I know about it because I'm still going to weigh in. So I can pull that back. Again, I eat the same things anyway, like every day. I'm not a robot, but I'm a very boring eater. So I'll just eat the same thing every single day. If I'm gaining too much, then I'll just deduct it. If I'm not gaining enough, add in 50 carbs here and there. So yeah, I think again, I can't state enough. If you are experienced within tracking, which I'm not sure listeners maybe are who listen to this, I'm not too sure, but if you are experienced, I would highly recommend just taking some time away, and yeah, just don't use this time to eat like a dick. You can do that, but again, summer is a good time for it, and Christmas is a really good time for it, or Easter, like now.
Yeah, and actually on the tracking thing, I think I was just saying before, right? Like I've stopped my diet, and ultimately I've just stopped. Like not intentionally stopped, but like I said, the motivation sort of dwells a little bit that you just don't really feel
Mhm.
the desire. Like I told myself that because I was in a deficit, so naturally I was like, okay, I moved to maintenance. Chances are I might add around say 500 calories. I actually took a bit of a more conservative approach and said I'll probably aim for 300 calories back in, just because like NEAT is just down big time. Like this is I've done like 8,000 steps today, and this is the most I've done all week. Um, so things like that. But like from a tracking perspective, I think I completely agree. I think especially in times where you the weight is trickling in the direction that you want it to, both in a fat loss and gaining phase. Like you, if we've been doing this long enough, you tend to know protein's probably going to be in a good position. And if the scale's moving in the direction, like, does it really matter if you had like 10 grams less of carbs and a little bit more fat, like, and stuff like that? Like, it's just, or one day you had a little bit less calories and one day a little bit more. Like, I sort of use that. And I think it's only, I really like the idea of only tracking when it's needed. So when you need to push your weight up a bit more, you've got something to keep you accountable. When you're dieting and weight stalling, then you sort of want to start tracking then. I think it's probably not a good idea, like you said, if you're inexperienced with having an awareness of the food that you've been eating, to not track. Probably. I think there are some exceptions to that, but especially if you're coming out of a diet, um, and you've probably got if you've got a bit of bad experience rebounding quite hard, I think tracking can be really useful. I've definitely had that experience in the past where I'll come out of a diet, and for me it's binge city, like, and that's it. So having tracking can be something to sort of keep you in check. But yeah, absolutely, I think it's super useful to sort of detach yourself away from an app and tool to track. So no, that's really good. Your plans for next year then? Competing next year, or still
Yeah,
considering it?
so I think what I'm gonna do is have realistically. I mean, what are we now? Is it April? So realistically, until January, maybe next year, and then kind of assess from there. Hopefully, all this crap is blown over by then. Um, but yeah, I think the plan would be to compete the same time of year. The only reason, and I've got like a ton of questions, so maybe I can clear this up right now.
Mm.
Um, I've got a ton of questions, like kind of asking why I'm going for the show in May and not necessarily for the September show, and it's pretty much because I wanted to get it over and done with. Not necessarily, and it kind of sounds bad, but I kind of like having summer where I'm like not food focused, if that makes sense. And I don't want to be in that time period where you're probably socializing a lot. You're probably doing all these things with your friends and stuff, and just having a kind of prep like Tupperware stuff. So that's the only reason why I kind of dieted for May. But I definitely think I'm going to do that. I do have a couple of weddings that I'm the best man for next year. So again, I don't want to be lean for that because number one, the photos are just going to be that like skull face. So I don't want that. And also I have to be on top notch form because my speech just has to be sick. So yeah. So definitely May next year, hopefully if it's on.
Yeah, or your best man speech is just about how food focused you are and how
Yeah.
this wedding is not as important as your prep. So everyone here
Like,
is
well, nice man.
no one here is as shredded as me. Like start thinking about how the actual groom needs to diet a bit and
Yeah. Your like wedding suit looks like a fucking wizard sleeve on your arm.
no, that's
It
that
got measured
yeah.
like 6 months ago.
I actually agree. I would actually testify to that the competition in May. Like I think if I was to compete, that's probably ideal for me because like
Yeah.
you sort of start fresh in I guess January time, February. Nothing really happens in those first few months, depending on thingy. But then like the summer comes, like you said, like you don't want to be dieting because like I know for myself, summer's like it's always like picnics, barbecues, things like that. Like times where you just don't want to be worrying about food. And then that period, like people are like, I don't know how anyone diets over Christmas period. To me, that's just unheard of. So May
Yeah.
seems to be the
No, it's like I always say January is the easiest time of year to diet. So if you're ever going to do a mini cut, then just do it then, because you're literally no one's got money. Well, obviously people have money, but some people just don't have money. Like normally all your friends have done all their socializing in kind of December,
mm.
so you don't have to maneuver any of that in January. So yeah, if you're going to pick a time to diet, I mean January's easy as hell, and then February's not actually that bad either. I mean you've only got Valentine's Day, and that can be steak. So done.
Nice. Awesome. No, that's good. I think that was that's probably, I know that was useful for me to get a grasp of, and hopefully the listeners got something out of that. To be honest, I didn't want to, I don't want to go into detail about, oh, what should everyone do during isolation around training and nutrition. I think the times I scroll through Instagram, I see every home workout that you can think of. You're putting out great content. I think all the right people are doing that. Don't think we need another podcast on that sort of stuff. What I thought might be useful, I know we both got some questions off the old Insta. So maybe we can go through a few of those. Do you want to maybe kick us off with one that you've got? Then we can just alternate.
Yeah, let me just get it up.
Awesome.
A well-placed thumb does that.
Yeah, it's as prepared as always.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say who it's from because like I'm legit the worst with names. So there is a question. So what do you do? What do you both do as full-time jobs? So go ahead.
Yeah, so I am a IT project manager for a global gas and oil company. So basically, I work to help implement new technologies within the company in a certain section. That can vary from implementing a new sales tool that can help basically generate more leads, or it can be around something that allows us to better price our products in order to get more value and earn more money in the grand scheme of things. So anything that's like technology related, it could be an app that's customer facing. I'll be sort of involved in leading a team of technical people who are a lot more clever than I am, and probably a lot more clever than a lot of people I've met, to actually coordinate that work. So my key role is basically managing the budget, time scale, and scope of work to make sure it's delivered on time. So yeah, it's all right. It's has its, like every job, it has its good days and its bad. So it's yeah, in the current state of financial crisis and the drop in oil prices right now, it's not a good time, but in other days it's great. What about yourself, Jack?
Yeah. And in like 6 months it'll be back to normal. But
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the hope.
yeah, no. So nothing fancy to be honest. I'm a CNC machinist, mainly a CNC turner, and basically I just cut metal all day. So it's really hard to explain, but basically you program or code a machine, and it will go to them coordinates that you've programmed. Given that you have programmed them correctly, that it doesn't smash into the chuck. So yeah. Somewhat boring, but basically I program people and metal like literally all day, every day. I actually have the privilege, or it kind of fits in nicely, so I can actually do online coaching while I'm at work. So it's not too bad of a gig. So yeah, nothing too special.
Yeah, and let's just recognize here, I think you, Jack, are probably one of the few or many sort of online coaches who you say that that's your full-time job, but I think you do. I think by the looks of things, you definitely have two full-time jobs with
Yeah.
with your coaching for sure. So it's yeah, props to you for balancing that for sure.
Yeah, it's sometimes difficult. A lot of times difficult, to be fair, but yeah, I think if it gets too much, then I think we'll pull the plug on something.
Yeah,
But
nice.
yeah, have you got another question?
Yeah, sure.
You probably
So
got about 6 from Joe, right?
yeah, 6 from Garage Gym Joe. So he's your client, right? So yeah, he asked the first six, so he gets his questions answered first. I'm not going to answer all of it. I'm gonna stick to the fitness related one. So the
Go
first one,
the
hmm?
juicy ones.
Pardon?
Go the juicy ones.
Yeah. So leg training with limited equipment. Favorite exercises so far, or favorite workout so far?
Oh, I'd say one of my favorite exercises right now without equipment is sissy squats. Um, yeah, f- for some, doing it is quite difficult because like it's kind of quite taxing on your knees. But I'd say for the most part, like yeah, sissy squats are the one for me. What are you?
Yeah, so I'm doing the sissy squats right now, and I'm sticking with them, but I think I'm definitely falling to the group where I feel it in my knees a little bit. I do get some benefit from it, but I won't start with it, if that makes sense, in my workout. The best, like especially for quads, like I was saying before, hamstrings are just I'm struggling, but for quads is just like I wear my squat shoes, elevate them even further. So I've got like a little slope in my bathroom that's like about 45 degrees, but it's quite small. And that combined, like super high rep squats with just body weight. So like say sets of, so I got like total reps target of like 70 reps, and you just keep going, keep going. As soon as you start to like, as soon as you can't go, as soon as you hit failure, you start like 2 seconds, go again. So like by the time you hit like rep 20, you've reached failure pretty much. Um, and then you just keep going like every 3 reps, pause, 4 reps, pause, 2 reps, pause, and you keep doing that until oh my god, my quads have been in pieces. Every workout I've done that, I've been sore. So if you're struggling to feel any soreness in your quads, like I definitely give that exercise a go.
Yeah, I have like the I have like programming the kind of wall hack squat kind of so when you put the band
Mm.
around your neck and kind of feet and then you kind of use the wall as a kind of a back plate for the hack squat. I think that's pretty good. I think if you have a band that's fairly resistant, I think that's quite cool. And also go for a wall that isn't lumpy or bumpy because otherwise your back's gonna get torn the fuck up. So
Yeah, I tried to warm up doing that, and my wall, because I'm in a flat, so my wall made a weird noise, and I got
yeah.
worried that it was just gonna fall through. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I probably have to say, I hate to say it, but the Bulgarian split squat, like, it's the worst. It's just the worst exercise, but it really does work. Like, I really do hate it, but yeah, it's definitely effective.
Yeah, the front elevated, kind of banded. So you got the 45-degree thing that you've got. You have like that elevated. Then you put a band around your kind of foot and then around your neck. I don't know if that makes sense,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
but they suck.
yeah.
They also suck to get out of as well.
Oh, I can imagine, right? You just fold underneath yourself, right?
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah, but the good thing is, I just realised it's 8 o'clock and everyone's clapping for the NHS.
I can just hear it. So, um, there we go. We're doing a clap via podcast, so this will live much longer than any other clap. So
Exactly.
we win.
Yeah.
Um, cool. Do you want to go with the next question? Let's do maybe one or two more each, and then we'll close it there. We'll we'll
Yeah.
get we'll get other questions next time.
Okay. I have. Do you think reps and reserve training is best in this time period? Which I knew an RER question was going to come up because everyone assumes I'm the RER guy.
Mm. Yes, my answer would be I think regardless of your situation, um, RER is always a useful training tool. I do find in my experience so far is I have semi thrown the idea out of the window a little bit just because I know that I pussy out when it comes to high rep exercises. So if I tell myself that I'm going to do 3 RAR, I know that that's more likely going to be like 5 or 6 RAR. So yes, it is useful if you actually follow the principle. Um, my recommendation, maybe not recommendation, but something I'm doing myself is I'm basically pushing pretty much every exercise and set as close to failure as I really want to. And then week by week, just seeing where I can add a rep. and set here and there. I don't know what you think. You probably work with people who, I guess, are more experienced, and yourself are more experienced with RAR.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I would say that gauging RER or gauging kind of 3 to 4 reps in reserve in a higher rep range is near impossible unless you have a lot of training experience, of which I do not. So I am going not to failure. I'd say I'm going to around 1 RER. And what you can do is very similar to reps in reserve, where you go kind of 3 reps in reserve, 4 reps in reserve, 3, 2, 1, 0. Obviously, you don't need to do that, but what we can do is kind of have you at 1 RER the whole mesocycle, and the last week you can kind of go to failure, or go to failure the whole way through, and on the last week you can introduce things such as drop sets, myo reps, everything else like this, so you can really kind of functionally overreach, not necessarily via adding sets, but definitely by implementing something like drop sets, myo reps, everything else like that. But I guess the answer is, do you think RER training is best in this time period? Probably not. I'd say it's useful, but probably going to 3 or 4 RER is probably not the greatest idea right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think for probably most people listening to this who maybe don't have as much experience having to train in the higher rep ranges and gauging RER in those rep ranges, you're probably better off just pushing everything relatively close to failure. Because
Yeah, I
man,
feel like
those
it's broadened.
yeah, and it gets really tough in those. Like if you're doing a set of 30 and it is your 30 rep max, like that 24th and 25th rep is going to be really hard. Um,
Yeah.
so like, yeah, it's I would say just go to failure most of the time, or as close to, especially when it's safe, right? Because you're doing such light loads, it's not going to be as taxing and or dangerous to go to failure, I would say. Cool. All right, I'm gonna ask one more again from Joe, and I'll be interested for your answer on this. Is do you think everyone will be resensitized to volumes after the lockdown?
Yeah, I've actually got exactly the same question on here. It's actually saying, would you suggest a primer phase after this, after the kind of lockdown? Yes, yes is the answer. Basically, in this time period, basically, unless you've got like the craziest home garage gym in the world, which Joe actually has but can't get to right now, you are basically running a metabolite phase. So I'm running a metabolite phase. You are technically running one right now. So I would suggest after this, yes, people will be very resensitized to training volume. And ideally, in an ideal scenario, what would happen is we will come out of this lockdown, everyone can go into the gym, and you can go for kind of a strength block, which should be something like a primer phase, and you will reap some benefits, if not great, and some splin skitting, no, skin splitting pumps. Pumps you will experience probably like 4 times in your lifetime, but um, I guess the answer is yes. You would resensitize to training volume.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And uh, sort of maybe a tangent to that is, what do you think? So, just thinking about sort of gen pop people and bros, like this gym's going to be open, right? People are going to be out of training properly, or training heavy for a while. How many people do you think are going to get injured within the first few weeks of going back?
Quite a lot. And this is a thing when you're resensitized, which most people will be. Again, if you have a garage gym, you're fine. Um, be very, very careful. So you've already been training with super high volume, or should at least be, or yeah, I'd say for the most part, people will be training higher volumes than they would have in the gym. Um, Simply because the stimulus tends to be lower, so you need more sets to have the same amount of stimulus. So I would be very, very careful, especially if you're comparing your MRV now and your volume landmarks now to what you are going to perform in the gym. If you're going to go off that, then yeah, you could get injured, I would say be very, very careful. I would say almost approach it like a beer glass. Um, don't just don't just put your kind of like your head in the barrel and start sipping away. Just casually drink. You will get drunk eventually.
Yeah, I'm just, I can already see the people like going in and starting to try and do like a 1 rep max or like do the weights that they did on, say, bench and stuff. Like, I don't know about you, but I already know that probably like my first week back in the gym, I'm probably going to treat it as almost like a deload or like a very conservative sort of beginner of a primer phase, just because like, oh man, I can just see it already. Like, and I know I'm like, I have to almost tell myself that in advance because I'm going to be so excited to like try the equipment and try and get progress again. And it's times like that when you've had that time off already, so easy to get injured again.
Yeah, I think one of the obviously the question that we answered where it says, "Do you think RAR training is best in this time period?" It's like no, but after yes.
Absolutely, yes, yes. For RAR, everyone.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's unless you got any more questions. Did you have one more question?
No, I've got a
No?
shitload of bots saying what's up. So
Yeah, I've got one like follow for me or oh, I don't know if you knew this, but I love your content. So from a person
thank
who
you.
doesn't follow me. Nice. Awesome. Well, that was it was cool actually to get some people's questions. It's good to know that actually people want us to answer their stuff, answer their queries, their woes. Their I've got loads here around Netflix, baby names, Alex Caruso, all sorts. So it's yeah, we'll cover those another time. But until then, guys, thank you all for listening. And we will be back in probably 2 weeks, hopefully. So catch you then. All right. Bye bye.
Peace.
Peace.